My interest began when I was in Berlin in 2006. I saw the work of an artist whose name I didn't write down stupidly, which was blown up images from newspapers in an attempt to create a history of the DDR. And among these images were photos of women at these Spartacardia displays. I was initially interested in how they looked, to me, so telling of an era, with their pointy brows, low cuts, sports shorts, and middle-parted hair, and that their bodies looked so sculpturally dressed up in comparison to our lycras now. On top of this, I wondered how an individual body, which is what the artist had focused on by zooming in, could reflect the philosophy of the state on its own. The Spartacardia were massive gymnastic or physical culture displays that took place in all communist countries, I think. They were meant to embody the ideals of the communist body, which was healthy, young and strong, but also the choreography reflected a body as machine with all parts working towards a proud industrialist future. I was thinking about the rise of patriotism in Australia and how I could achieve or comment on a patriotic body in a singular way. Strangely, my interest in futurism met up with my interest in these pictures. There's a direct line from Marinetti in Italy with his emphasis on speed, machine and industry to the futurists in Russia where these kind of gymnastics began. I've only just started to read about Meyerhold and biomechanics, but I know there is something in this about the external machine body and the internal personal feeling body. The response in art and culture about the body's relationship to the machine or the industrial mechanized future in the early part of last century really fascinates me. And actually now I'm reading the Virilio book Open Sky at the moment, where he ponders what the digital age means for the body and its community. He's suggesting a kind of disabling effect. At university for a dance history assignment we had to recreate Gertrude Bodenwieser's Demon Machine. At the time the choreography felt so naff, with each dancer representing a cog in the machine with all these strong repetitive movements. But now I realise it was part of a real trend, and though its outlook was dystopic and far more expressionist than the Spartacardia, which is certainly optimistic towards a utopia. I'm also interested in how the philosophic interests of the country met so strongly with the philosophies of the body. These gymnastics were supposed to reflect a pleasure in work, with the communist philosophy dictating that labour is joy and therefore leisure time should be akin to work. I could actually go on for ages about this, but I won't. In movement terms, I'm trying to reflect the sense of being singular amongst the mass, to evoke a feeling of unison movement or unison choreography, but also my relation to this choreography. I'm using the Vivaldi at the moment mainly because it seems to me such a ubiquitous piece of music that it says classical music in the same way that the costume could say costume, but also because of its stirring pomposity. During the residency, it was interesting for me to experiment with the level of acting required to dance within the imagined group, to perform my imagination in a sense. At the same time, I want it to be a dance investigation and not a pantomime. I want to be embodying the movement rather than showing it, and it is this line that I had to work out with each repetition. I think now I'm at the point where I would like to choreograph it so that I can more clearly look at what it's doing. Like with what I've written later, or we'll say later, about Ros Warby in relation to your work, I think it's this flickering of readings that I want to achieve. It being about this historic body, this philosophic body, this industrialised patriotic body, but also for it to be a way into looking at the here and now dancing of my and our practice through our work with Rosalind Crisp. Part of what we're investigating was our solo practice. I think for me this is partly tied up in these ideas I have for solo pieces, which might be because I have a multiple other in the fondue set. However, when I was mentoring at Dance House after our residency, I realised that the dance information I have in my body is mine and has taken years of commitment to achieve. It's not quite as simple as learning a few movement scores. In fact, I felt during our residency that there was still so much for me to process from what I've learnt from Ros Crisp, and some ways the more I dance, the more I need to dance. I feel like we both got to a place with our dancing that got away from any judgmental barriers and moved into a place of definite research and work, and yet it feels hard for me to quantify it. There is a question in here somewhere. I just wanted to ask you, I just wanted to hear what you thought about your solo dance practice, whether it is something that drives you and not just an economic choice. Do you think that you'd ever be in a place where you wanted to make group pieces? Is the group problematic for the kind of process-driven dance